Let's go.
Hi, everybody. This is Elena from Cross Cultural Development, and you are listening to Bending Culture Podcast, the show where we master the art of cultural collaboration and where the professionals learn how to grow and thrive in the multicultural world we live and work in today, and how to become the real global game changers. Welcome. In today's episode, we are diving into the world of modern talent acquisition, where the professional recruiters need to be aware and have a deep knowledge of local and cultural nuances. For me personally, that is a very interesting topic, as I am very passionate about solving the challenges of shortage of talent for organization and the general impact this present reality makes on the business world and will be making in the coming years, several years, as I see that. So I'm very, very proud today that our guest agreed to join us and share her deep insights on the subject. Her name is Lina Beck, and Lina is an ex-Fortune 500 professional. She is a Harvard graduate. Now she is an associate partner at Crowbell, an executive search firm with offices in Germany and the United States, operated through the whole world. Lina is passionate about optimizing the talent acquisition process with new tech tools available, but she is also what I call my cultural awareness tribe member, as she sees the talent acquisition not only as the matter of innovative high tech, but also as a matter of deeper understanding and respecting the cultural difference of both employers and candidates. Lina says that her mission is to empower Europe and Middle East most ambitious medium and large-sized businesses via high-performance teams of tomorrow. And I would love to ask you guys to remember her mission statement, because right away it is a teaser for our next episode with Lina. But I will talk about it later. For now, Lina, welcome. Great to have you here today with us.
Elena, thank you so much. I am really happy and grateful to be here to share my insights and to join you on your podcast.
Perfect. So let's make some fun and talk about this very, very interesting topic. The first question, the right away question, which excites me mostly. How do you from inside, because I'm looking from my side at this world of talent acquisition and getting global, but you are on inside. How do you see what is going on in the talent acquisition business at that moment?
Wow, there's so many things are going on. There are several main streams that we can dissect in the talent acquisition world of today. First of all is digitalization, of course, and I am a great advocate for that. I'm talking about the talent acquisition here and about hiring. Even a few years ago, before COVID time, we always said, no, we have to see this candidate face to face. It's so important. Even for the first interviews, we would fly people in from other countries. Today, it's just a matter of a video call with somebody and saying, okay, does it fit? Does it not? So can we move forward? And there was a transition to a final interview has to happen face to face. Final, maybe two candidates. Today, a lot of teams are remote, and some people haven't even seen each other face to face in real life. And then they said, okay, fine, we're just going to hire this person because this is a setup. And I really love that because I think it's so empowering and it really contributes to this fast pace that companies have now. You make sure that your hiring process, and that's another very important part, is that the hiring process has to be really on point and really contribute to what you're trying to achieve so that you can hire the best candidate that fits you. Because one candidate can be really great, but it will never fit to your company. And I'm not talking here about the cultural fit, which is still also another topic which is really greatly discussed now on the internet. Should we go with the cultural fit? Should we completely say no? There should be no cultural fit. And we can talk more about it further. That's just one of the things. I think another thing, what I see on a talent acquisition market of today, when you look from the like global perspective, when you take yourself a little out, is the talent mobility. What I mean by that is people are not afraid to move. They want to move countries, they want to move regions, they want to try new things. It's not, here is my home and I'm going to look for a company in my town.
Yeah, so 5 minutes driving because 1 hour in the car is already too much with traffic jams. But
Exactly.
I'm curious, do you think that has to do with new younger generations who are more global nomads coming to the world? Because I'm from a generation Y, I think, or something, and I think I was the first generation starting moving around, and at that time it was a big deal 30 years ago. But now I see how easy the millennials are doing it, the Gen Zs are doing that. They are coming instead of baby boomers who are less ready to move around. Or you see that through all the generations that people are more open to relocate.
I think there are different aspects to that because we also have to keep in mind what kind of roles these generations have now. So if you look at the Gen Zs, they're in that age that perhaps they're not in a super senior roles yet. So for them, it is easier to relocate, perhaps. I don't want to judge for anybody, but I think you have a good point. They are way more open minded to that. Maybe they have yet haven't acquired that human capital that tied them to one place. But in general, I do agree with you. I think they are way more open-minded to understand that the world is the playground. But when we talk about other generations who are currently holding more senior roles, those are the ones that do have some kind of attachment to location due to families,
Yeah.
due to their other things. But then for them, the relocation part is a little different. For them, it's mostly through the assignments, for example,
Okay.
with the current company, going for 2 years to another country to lead the team. And this is where this cultural, interesting dynamics are being uncovered.
Okay. Oh, sounds great. Do I understand it correctly? The digitalization is something which is totally new, and also the possibility to move around. That we're talking about really like acquisition global pool nowadays, right? The world is your playground. That is the thing that is what you think that they are the greatest new trends which are characterizing the talent acquisition market of today.
Yes, I would say, but at the same time, I would want to add that even though the world is globalized and companies do open up to a global talent pool, they're way more open now to have roles being somewhere else, not in their home country, for example, of the organization home country. But at the same time, you can also see some sort of localization going on. There are certain roles that cannot be done elsewhere, or certain roles that do require local knowledge. So I'll give you an example from
Yes,
my
please.
own HR field. And when you have an HR business partner, it is important that the HR business partner is on the ground and perhaps
Right.
even speaks the local language. So it really depends on what kind of role. But roles like in IT, for example, data engineer or architect, or even marketing for that matter. But again, certain marketing roles should also be considered
The
to be
local, yeah,
localized
right.
because of
Yeah.
the language and so on. But in general, companies do see potential to see, okay, how can I take that role and see if that role can be done elsewhere. And also one more thing, but that's not new, to be honest, where companies really create locations with another offices of that company with the shared services. That's how they often call them. And then they outsource to that office a lot of admin stuff because they realize that the admin stuff can be done elsewhere, and in a location where the company is, just keep the strategic roles being
Can you give
supported
me a
by
little bit example to understand that how it works? Is it like the whole administration is in India while the offices are placed in Sweden, Italy, and Germany, for example, or do I see it wrong?
No, no, you see it right, but it's not only India. It can be Malaysia, it can be Romania. So there are those hubs that are quite well known to have great talents, because it's also the availability of the talents for that matter. It can be completely different region, but then this region would be supporting, for example, Middle East region is supported by the team in, let's say.
Yeah. But do you think that this importance of your own boots on the ground, that the job that they are doing, that the administrative work is then less culture bound than, for example, for HR managers? Because it's so funny when you said that we need people there. I was thinking about production. I was really thinking about people operating the machines. And then you said HR manager, and I'm like, of course, yeah, how so funny. But that administration stuff is still can be done by people who know nothing actually about the company in detail, or the culture, or the market where the company operates on.
That's actually not true. This is a very, very typical misconception. And I think this is where companies thought that, okay, that it's just admin. That's how they would think about it.
Yeah. That's how I sounded, right?
But what happens in reality, people who are doing the admin, they're interacting with the office, and they both doing their jobs, and they both depend on each other and then rely on each other. And when people work together, there is a collaboration going on. So
Absolutely.
people have meetings, people have emails, and you can see that the culture here, understanding with whom you're dealing, is a very important topic, because they have to, both of the sides have to adapt to each other. And if one side is, okay, I'll give you one example. So in the Middle East, we worked with a team in Romania. And the team in Romania was an amazing team. They really knew what they were doing. They supported some HR administration, and they really had their feet on the ground with all the processes and everything. And Middle East wanted to build a relationship first.
Okay.
There was a bit of a clash when the Romanian team just wanted to do the processes right and was following the processes. The Middle East team was looking for the human connection. And perhaps for Romanian team, the human connection was there and it was enough for them, but it was not enough for the other teams. The Romanian team was perceived as being a little bit like stuck up and not being open to communicate, but at the same time they were. Me being from Russia, I actually understood that, yeah, the team is actually great. They're doing their job, they want to prove with their actions, but they could not adapt to the Middle Eastern team to have that personal connection. And this is where we really had to learn from each other and understand that there are different ways of communication, different ways of even writing emails. So even though you might think, yeah, it's just an administration office, whenever the communication is present, whenever one team relies on the other, this is when the real cultural adaptation takes place.
But in your example with this Middle East team and Romanian team, was it a happy end at the end?
Of course, we had a happy end, and it took a little bit of adjustment, I have to say. But yes, I think both sides realized that we have to work together. And I think when there is a genuine interest of working together, this is when things happen.
Now I'm totally in my element, so I'm very curious how the process went. Is it like something that dawned on some people, or is it that the management said, guys, we need to adapt to each other? How it started from bottom up, or was it from top down?
I think everyone and everybody, you, me, we are very different in our speed of processing information. So to you, this realization that we have to adapt to each other might come faster than to me. But then I see you getting there and starting being more adaptable, being more open-minded, more curious. I would think, maybe I should try that too. And I think it's a mix of this unconscious and conscious, and maybe even internal mentorship and coaching from both sides. And this is how you gradually build that. I don't think that can happen overnight. It's
No.
something that is developing and nurtured. And that's why when you see those teams that work together, for example, for 3 4 years, they don't even need words sometimes.
Yeah. Yeah, they can just look at each other and understand each other. But you are now talking about like an organic connection. And it's great when it happens, and great that the level of consciousness of on both sides is high enough, maybe not the same, but high enough to understand, okay, you are coming to me, so I want to come to you. In reality, when it's rat race and things need to happen like yesterday, there is not always time and space for this organic growth. So somebody needs like to jump in. It will not happen overnight. Absolutely, it's a long process. Creating a culture, how I call it, is the longest process. But it's great that there are organizations. It's great example that there are organizations who can really organically understand these nuances and take the trip, the journey together. But what I see more often is it vice versa. It's really somebody needs to say, okay, guys, it's not working. Why is it not working? Let's analyze it. And okay, what can we do? Like a third party or somebody needs to start talking. Somebody needs to be the awareness call.
Look, and this is where I think the talent acquisition part comes really important. It's whom do you hire in your team? Do you hire people who are open minded? Do you hire somebody who is curious enough to learn about other cultures? And are you yourself, as a manager, open to hire a person from a different background, for
Yeah.
example? Are
And
you
what do you see how open people are nowadays?
I think it really depends, I would say. I don't want to say for everybody and for every country. The countries that I worked in and with teams that I worked with, they're pretty open-minded, and I think that's why we click as well, because I think it would be difficult for me to
Yeah.
recruit, to build this professional relationship with somebody with a closed mindset. So I would either probably try to open to different possibilities, but otherwise, I do see that more and more companies understand the beauty of having international teams and bringing different cultures, different perspectives. And it's not even about only cultures, it could also be diversity of generations. And I think this
Exactly.
is a very important topic today with the aging talent, for example. We will have to increase the age years of employment because of the population growth, and gender diversity again is there. So it's a
Absolutely.
different perspective. And as a manager, as somebody who's hiring in the team, should not only look at the role just as a role, but as a puzzle to that team that this manager is hiring into.
Yeah. And that brings me to this question I have. I really want to dive deep with you on the whole process of your work, what you are doing. And I think it's all started with placing an advertisement for a position. And I always say that one size doesn't fit at all. So if you talk to everybody, nobody will react, nobody will feel connected. So how do you start? What is your ideas on this?
Happy you brought this up, because this job advertisement is often is a first point of contact with the candidate might have known about the organization earlier sometimes, and especially if the company is not super big, you see that the candidate sees the role for the first time, and then through the job advertisement the candidate understands what kind of company it is. And that's why it is super important to really craft the job advertisement. And I really want to use the word craft here, because you want to showcase not only your company culture, but at the same time where you advertise this role.
Okay.
But here comes several caveats to that. For example, if the company advertises for a role that is global, you don't
Yeah.
know where the person is going to sit. So how can you localize the job advertisement? So your main anchor in this case is going to be your own culture as a company. And this is where I think the culture fit comes into discussion, because again, so many people on the internet say, no, we should stop hiring for culture fit, where I would say, look, it depends. Because if your company is healthy, in terms of your culture, in terms of your priorities, then why not? You craft a job advertisement as per your company principles. And for example, you have a flat hierarchy in the company. You're really laid back. Maybe you even have a policy of take as many vacation days as you want. So why would you then, as a company, draft this super hierarchical advertisement that will not reflect your company at all? And then you will
Only to fit in a certain location, or because the people in the country where you're advertising are more hierarchical than your company.
This is if you are localizing the role. I'm now discussing the role that is open for everybody to apply globally. So this is where you have only one anchor as your own company. And then, yes, you would want to showcase what your company is about. But also, you want to say that we welcome different opinions, welcome diverse backgrounds. So this is one side. At the same time, if you know where the role is going to be based, you have two anchors. One anchor is your company, and another one is the location that you want a role to be in. And this is where this interesting dynamics are coming into. So we discussed now about the company anchor and about company culture that should be introduced through the job advertisement, just to showcase what kind of company it is. But at the same time, if you're localizing, you have to make sure that you are not even perhaps offending anybody. And I'll give you an example, which is I've heard from another podcast from another HR person. There was a role advertised in Australia.
Yeah.
And the mother company was in Canada. And they thought, okay, English, how difficult could that be? They just took on that Canadian advertisement and placed it on the Australian market. And then the recruitment process continued, and they hired a really good candidate. And then once the candidate got on board, this candidate or this new hire now said, guys, you have to change the job advertisement. And the guys are like, wow, why? Yeah, because all your spellings are Canadian spellings. And we see that you didn't do your due diligence.
Yeah.
Another small thing, for example, in Canada, these are not states, they're provinces. And in UAE, these are emirates. So if you advertise a role in the UAE, for example, and you say a state of Dubai, then this is obvious that you don't know what you're talking about.
Yeah.
Those small things, or if we go into cultural, for example, aspects, if you're advertising a role in Asia, for example, where hierarchy is perceived as something that gives clarity, then you might not want to, of course, you don't want to lie on your advertisement, and you don't want to deceive anybody. But let's say your company has a flat hierarchy. And if you say it in the job advertisement in the Asian market, somewhere in Malaysia or in Vietnam, for example, people might not like it. They would say, oh, this company doesn't know what they're doing. It's a mess. You would want to see how can you change the wording of your flat hierarchy into something that will fit the market. Maybe you want to say we have an open culture and we open different opinions. Or you might say we have approachable leadership.
Yeah, it still will be understood differently in Vietnam than in Canada, I believe. What is approachable leadership is, but it will give some points, some measurement, something that it's different than you maybe see in Vietnamese advertisement. My burning question is: can companies do that by themselves? Because when I hear that, it requires so much knowledge that I would say, guys, if you go so far, if you go to the different part of the world where you know very little about, hire a professional, hire a company who does know that. It sounds maybe very expensive to hire an outside recruiter, but it will pay so much in wasting time on wrong candidates.
Maybe before, I have to say yes. And that's why this local knowledge was so important, to really speak with somebody from that culture. Hey, how does it sound to you? Can I say it that way? Can I not? But nowadays, I don't think companies have an excuse not to localize. With the internet, with the ChatGPT, just put your advertisement in the ChatGPT and say, hey, I want to advertise this role in Vietnam. What do I change? And at the same time, we're talking now about those cultural nice to haves, and maybe even further should have, but also those legal requirements that are must have.
Yeah.
So if I'm advertising a data engineering role in Germany, I have to say that it is not an engineering job that requires a certain qualifications, and I have to outline it in the job advertisement. Otherwise, I am deceiving the candidate, because the engineer as a role is legally protected in Germany. So I cannot just call anybody engineer. And at the same time, this is also linked to a cultural aspect, because in Germany, it is super important that your role reflects what you're going to do. Whereas in the Middle East, for example, if you are called head of marketing, you might not even have a team, because in the Middle East, the role is going to reflect your status. So you see that there's so many different dynamics here. And to what you were saying before, this can really be done with ChatGPT.
Yeah, that is how the tech people look at this, guys. You see, that is the old generation. She's thinking, okay, we need to go to the library and research the country, and then they say, okay, check the ChatGPT in 30 minutes. You will have the information. 30 seconds. Okay, so we found some great candidates. Now we need to interview them. What happens? Step 2.
Yeah, interview processes. And interview processes can either break it or make it. And
Okay.
there is the new trend about no interviews at all, but I think it's really about the naming. At the end of the day, it's a conversation, however you want to call it. And without having a conversation, I think it's difficult to hire somebody and difficult to understand what the person is about. Any interview for me is an opportunity, is a chance to see what the person is about. And
Yeah.
this is where you want to make sure that you are coming with open mind and curiosity. Really, I cannot stress enough how important these are. Because if the interviewer is biased or even unconsciously biased, then whatever candidate can say, you will already have some preconceptions. And I'll give you one example from my own experience. When I just started recruitment and when I was HR executive, I had a interview and the lady was late. And in my Russian culture, being late for an important meeting means that you just don't
Disrespect.
Yeah, it's a disrespect. You don't care. And this is how I walked into the interview to this candidate. So it was very unfair to the candidate. And I caught myself in perhaps maybe like in 5 minutes into the interview, I caught myself that, hey, you're having a bias now. You're having a precondition. And surprise, surprise, she was an amazing candidate who actually got a job.
And something just happened, and she was late.
Yeah, exactly.
Stupid bad luck.
No parking. To be honest, I don't remember what was her. I think it was the traffic. In Dubai, there's a lot of traffic and parking.
Yeah. Now with online, you don't have this excuse, but
Yeah, but online, sometimes Wi-Fi might not work, and those things happen.
yeah. What do you see as the biggest biases? Because we last couple of years we are talking that we need to get away with these biases, especially in by HR managers, because of the culture, because the age differences, because the gender differences and stuff like that. What are the biggest what you see are still there? They are so difficult to get rid of.
I think I would say that we still judge others by our own standards, even though we say, yes, we're open minded. But when we encounter something that we don't understand, we just say, okay, that's interesting. But so this but is so ingrained in us, we just cannot get rid of it. Because and this is normal. It's a biological, but judging others by our own cultural standards, I think this is still very ingrained, especially if you don't really have enough experience of working with other cultures or from hiring from other cultures or even having a conversation.
Yeah, and that what I see because the business world, the workflow is becoming more and more multicultural. I see that so many HR managers are not used to work with people from different cultures. If you would give one piece of advice how to stop this flow of bias, what it would be from your own experience, because you learned it. I see that you say, okay, I stop myself. So what would you give the piece of advice for the people who don't have that much multicultural international experience as you are?
It's a work with biases. And to work with bias, you really, first thing is to acknowledge that there are biases. Because if we don't see a problem, we're not going to act on it. So you have to understand that, yes, I do have biases. And then the second part is, what kind of biases do I have? And catching ourselves judging others, I think, is the best source to find out what are your biases.
Yeah.
And it's really this conscious effort to know yourself. This is where the best start lies. And then accepting it and working through it. And maybe challenging yourself in those situations. Like in my experience, the lady was late. I was really angry. I was angry because I thought that it was a sign of disrespect. But then I twisted. So
Yes.
I realized it, I accepted it, and then I said, why don't I try something else? What if I remove this bias now? So that's one thing. Or if you see a different behavior, for example, in the interview, I think we discussed it with you earlier, the eye contact.
Yeah.
Direct eye contact is not something that every culture has. And for me, not having a direct eye contact is going to signal that the person is not genuine. But for the others, it might mean a sign
Respect.
of respect.
You are senior because you are interviewing for the position, so you are senior, you are higher on the hierarchy, so I'm not supposed to look you in the eyes because then I'm provocative and disrespectful. Yes.
Yeah.
Yes,
So,
it's a great example.
but really understanding it for yourself, not
Yeah.
directly diving into judgment. So that would be my advice on how to deal with biases.
Do you think that HR managers, is it their personal responsibility to grow, or the companies they work for also need to understand that they need to help their professionals to be better, to equip them more into working in this multicultural surroundings?
I think the HR has a very important role, and HR is a gatekeeper to the company.
Wow. Yeah.
So let's face it, an HR is a trendsetter as well as a culture setter. And I'm not talking about HR organizing some pizza parties or something. HR works with leadership teams to see how to transform the organization. A lot of things cannot happen without HR, and pretty
Yeah.
much everything cultural related.
Yeah, of
I
course.
think it's HR's responsibility to start with themselves first, because you cannot transform the organization if you are not there yet yourself.
Yeah.
So I do see a very big responsibility on HR. And if I see that HR is not open minded or not curious, to me, it's a sign that, okay, maybe the organization isn't ready either yet. Or maybe it's a
Yeah.
wrong HR for this organization. If the organization, the leadership team is already there, they want to move forward, but there is a blocker in the organization from the HR side, the system is going to expel
Yeah.
this element, and
Vice versa is not gonna happen, I think.
but
That's true. Interesting. We need to wrap up, but it's such an interesting conversation. I have personally learned so much today, and I'm sure that whether you are an HR professional, a recruiter, a company leader, you just got so many great gems of knowledge and advice from Lida today. So thank you very much for sharing this knowledge with us, your insight with us. Guys, maybe if you pay good attention in the beginning of the episode, I told you that Lina had a mission statement to empower Europe and Middle East medium and large scale companies, creating the high performing teams for their business for tomorrow. And I also told you that this is a teaser. What I meant by that, you already heard Lina talking a couple of times about Middle East, and I don't know about you, but for me, this is a part of the world which is so foreign and so mysterious. So I really could not pass the opportunity to talk with her about her experience of doing business in this part of the world. So what we decided to do is to make a second episode with Lina and talk about the mysteries of Middle East. So if you loved what you heard today and if you want to learn more from Lina, join us in 2 weeks for another great episode of Bending Culture podcast. And guys, every time I'm asking you, please subscribe, please leave a review, share this episode with a fellow global game changer because this podcast is growing. And until I see you again, this is Elena from Cross Cultural Development. And let's keep on bending culture together. to shape a thriving, inclusive business world. Lina, thanks again. Thank you guys, and I see you next time.
Thank you so much.